Welcome back, fantasy football fans. This is Fantasy Football in 5 coming at you for another episode here. We're going to have a live podcast here talking about the Listener League draft reactions. And obviously, we're going to be talking both East Coast and West Coast in this. And it's very exciting for us because this is something we've kind of expanded on from last year. Obviously, we had our Listener League last year. It was a lot of fun. The winners obviously got some money and everything. And then this year, we doubled it up. Had multiple leagues going here, and then we're going to have a huge payout at the end of the year. But then on top of that, we also are going to do, just like we did last year, the draft reactions where we dive deep into each team, tell you guys we aren't going to hold back. So we're going to tell you what we like, what we dislike, what teams we thought did really well, which ones maybe faltered a little bit and didn't quite listen to our podcast enough. Speaking of listening to our podcast, you can find us obviously live on our YouTube channel, Fantasy Football in 5. Go ahead and look that up. This will be live, and it'll also be able to be watchable afterwards. And then on top of that, you also can find us on Apple Podcasts and anywhere else that you listen to our podcasts at. But speaking of Apple Podcasts, we want to jump in here and thank you guys for whoever have gone out of their way and given us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And also, we encourage you guys, if you like our content and want to see more of it, definitely go give us a review, give us 5 stars, tell us what you like, anything that you think we could do better. Also, let us know, because we are here to listen and make this everything that you want and more. So I'm going to start this thing off with throwing over to Parker to explain how this is going to go.
Yeah, Taylor, thank you. So Taylor and I both commissioned our individual leagues. Since I'm living on the West Coast, I headed up the West Coast, and
East
Taylor
Coast,
has.
It's okay.
Yep. Let's just restart this because I need to just get a better start. But I'm East Coast, and so I headed up the East Coast division. And Taylor's got 12 of his own in the West Coast. So we were really surprised to actually get as many participants as we did this year. But hey, we have grown since year one, and we're very excited. This is our 3rd season doing our Listener League. This is our first time ever doing a dual podcast and live video. So if any technical difficulties come our way, we're sorry, because we don't know what we're doing.
Well, we have a little idea, but this is the first go round, so hopefully it turns out pretty well. And if you guys like this, let us know, because we'll probably do something similar to this in the future for some different special events here or there. But starting this thing off, I guess we're going to jump right into it, the East Coast, because they drafted first. Obviously, they drafted on, I believe, what was it, 8/15? It was a weekend. Yep. And they went in and had a pretty interesting draft here. So I'm going to let you start things off because you were part of this draft.
All right, so I'm going to take us away from the screen right now. So I'm just going to start with my team to get myself out of the way. I don't want to talk about myself too much. Taylor, you can feel free to be a little bit harsher on me. And when we go about these teams, it's going to take a while if we just went through name by name. So instead, we're just going to pretty much round up the starters and maybe some key bench players. So starting at quarterback for me, I have Justin Herbert. Grabbed him in round 6. My starting running backs are Saquon and DeAndre Swift. My starting 2 receivers are Allen Robinson and Chris Godwin. And then my 2 flex spots are currently taken up by T. Higgins and Kenyon Drake. That last flex spot is sort of to be determined. I have the Washington defense. Tyler Bass is my kicker. And to highlight my bench is going to be Rondale Moore, the rookie for the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, so to jump in here and give you a little bit of criticism. So first things first, I'm going to tell you what I like, because you know what? We're going to boost you up before I tear you back down.
Yeah, be a nice guy, please.
So first things first, I absolutely love the value with Saquon at pick number 7. It was a really good pickup because of the situation where he is going a lot of times in the top, 4 or 5 picks in a lot of drafts. So getting him at pick 7 is a huge value. I know there's injury concerns, but as long as you get some good people behind him, then that's going to be a steal if he stays healthy for the whole season. And then you also have one of my favorite backs this year in DeAndre Swift. Great duo there. And the thing that I'm going to jump out and say is I like Justin Herbert. Round number 6. You know what? A little early. I think you might have been able to hold off for a round, but you know what? You were in this draft, so you know how it was going better than I do. But the number one thing that I don't like about your team is the tight end position. Noah Fant.
Yeah, I will admit, Taylor, I passed on my guy Hawkinson in the 5th because I just saw more value than what was currently on the board. And then in round 5, I ended up taking T. Higgins, which, hey, I really like. He's going to be a consistent starter for me. But you're right. I'm not sold on Noah Fant at all. And it's Teddy Bridgewater this year.
I'm kind of curious to see what else was available when you picked Noah Fant.
It was what happened before I took Noah Fant that made me take Noah Fant. I lost out on my guys Logan Thomas and Robert Tonyan, those late round gems that I really enjoy. And Fant had fallen 2 rounds in ADP. So I figured, why not just take that? It's a slight value at this point, but I'm not sold. So hopefully I can get some boosts from other positions that I drafted well.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think that at tight end, I guess if you're going to lack at a specific position, tight end is the one to do it, simply because you're not going to get a lot of points from your tight end unless you get one of those top 3 guys. Then you're really not going to get a whole lot of points from your tight end week in and week out. So boosting those other positions is probably a smart way to go. Other than that, I think that Nico Collins was an interesting pickup that late, just because I think you probably could have just snagged him in waivers later and been okay. But
I didn't want to miss him, though. I've got a love affair for him.
I understand that. But other than that, I like your starting squad. I think it's pretty good because you're able to get guys who are going to catch the ball a lot, because this is full PPR. Yes. So that's something that everyone needs to remember, is all these guys like Allen Robinson, he's going to rack up the catches. He could have a 100-catch season, and he's always consistent week in and week out. And that's what I see more than anything for at least the top 4 or 5 guys here are consistency. And that's something that, for me, I value a lot.
All right, Taylor. So if you're going to grade my team via a letter grade, what would you give it?
Well, I'm going to give it I'm only going to say A. I'm not going to say A+ because your tight end's a little lacking. You know what? I might bump it down to an A-. All right.
That's what I would give myself.
Because I think that some of your bench players, you could have made different moves, I think, and maybe snagged some of these guys on waivers, or maybe picked up other guys who might have been available at those spots who, in my opinion, would have been better. So I'm going to give you an A- because I do like your starting squad. I think it's very strong, except for Noah Fant. That's another reason why I knock you down a little bit.
All right, well, let's move on now. We are going to head to Sir Lancelot. First of all, love the team name. It's got Trey Lance on the roster, so bonus points for that. But some highlights from Sir Lancelot's team. Dalvin Cook, Keenan Allen, Darren Waller, Cooper Kupp. Unfortunately, he drafted Travis Etienne, so that's obviously a big bummer to the team right now. But he backed it up with some strong bench backs like Trey Sermon and Nyheim Hines. And his flex spots will be occupied by Devonta Smith, and then a combination of probably Elijah Moore, Michael Pittman Jr., and Trey Sermon. Maybe Terrace Marshall might sneak in there too. Lots of young talent on this team.
Yeah, that's the first thing that jumps out at me is young. I think the oldest player that I see on this team, or just jumping out right away, is Keenan Allen. And he's so consistent that doesn't even matter to me. But I think in this case, I'm going to say one thing. That might, because it's a redraft league, I think it might hurt him. I really do. The fact that he went this young. I like the idea of going young, but in a dynasty league, that's great. But in a redraft league, you got to get some of those veterans who are consistent week in and week out, because some of these rookies, while they will probably perform well down the stretch, he's going to have a tough time, right off the boards getting people to score for him. I think that's something, even if Travis Etienne didn't get hurt, I think that he still would have had a tough time getting people to score for him, because, you got all these young receivers, and all these young receivers are on teams that have stacked receiver cores.
Yes.
And you don't necessarily,
they don't get the snap counts.
Exactly. And so while they will probably see the field a decent amount, you don't necessarily know that they're going to be targeted, because there's so many mouths to feed on those different receiver cores, like the Carolina Panthers with Terrace Marshall. And then the Jets have so many receivers out there with Elijah Moore. So it's something that I'm kind of unsure of. And then I don't like Michael Pittman Jr. personally. I've never liked him. I don't think that's a very good pickup, especially with the quarterback situation right now. It's really concerning out there. And then me personally, I liked Cooper Kupp a couple years ago. I think that I don't like him as much right now. I think that Robert Woods is probably the receiver I would rather want out there with the Rams, because I think Matt Stafford's going to have a better connection with Robert Woods. But that's just me personally. So I'm kind of curious to see what you think of this team.
Well, I obviously love his top 3 picks, Cook, Allen, and Darren Waller. That's a pretty strong trio to begin. And even Waller in round 3, I can't hate the value personally, but I'm just not a tight end early guy. So I'm not going to diss it because it's a fair strategy to have. But
and at least he got one of those top 3. In my opinion,
right,
I think he got the second best tight end out there.
Yeah, and he's got a guy who's going to lead his team in targets and probably all the receiving categories. So I'm a fan of this team for its potential, but potential versus actual outcome is going to be a tough factor to decide. I'm going to give Sir Lancelot here a B.
I'm going to be a little harsher just because I think he's going to have a tough time scoring. I really do. So I'm going to give him a C just because I think that it's going to be tough for him to score. I like some of these guys. So actually I'll bump it up to a C+ because I like some of the first couple of picks. And then I'm just worried down the stretch how he's going to score points, because if Trey Sermon doesn't come out and, lead his team in carries this season, then it's going to be really tough for him to find that second running back.
It'll be the Dalvin Cook show for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on. Team number 3, team name Game Blouses. All right, let's take a look at this team. Devontae Adams, Antonio Gibson, David Montgomery, George Kittle, the stack of Amari Cooper and Dak Prescott, along with Curtis Samuel and Melvin Gordon in the flex spots. Browns defense, Jason Myers at kicker. What stands out to you for this team, or what doesn't stand out?
Well, I think that his bench is a little weak. I don't like a lot of the bench players that he has. I hate Michael Gallup. I don't like David Johnson this year. He's been getting cut out of that Houston.
I'm surprised he wasn't cut on cut day.
Yeah, and then obviously Sterling Shepard. I don't know what's going to happen with him. Henry Ruggs hasn't impressed me yet, so I'm not impressed with most of his bench. But the starters, I think he did a decent job. He's got 2 running backs who could easily amass 1,000 yards apiece if they perform well this season. So that's decent. And then obviously he's got one of the best receivers in the league in Devontae Adams, catching machine out there as long as he has Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball. And he's got a top 3 tight end in George Kittle. So a nice setup to begin. But then I think after that, it gets a little concerning. I'm curious to see what he was thinking with the Amari Cooper pickup, because I know he was going to probably miss a little bit of time.
He's on the pump right now.
Yeah, and so there's a chance he'll miss some time this year. And then he's got Dak Prescott following him up. I like the Dak Prescott pickup, but I don't know if I like it that early.
Yeah, well, there's also more injury concerns with Dak's shoulder. So that's another thing to keep track of. If you drafted Dak, because of what you saw in the first 4 games last year. Right. And albeit fantastic first 4 games, you can't play the recency bias game. You have to look at the fact of the matter. He might be injury prone now. And I don't know. Will Dak be the same?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see. I like the first setup of the first few guys, and then after that, I think it's a little concerning. The Browns defense, I'm not sure what to think of them this year. Obviously, they got a lot of pass rushers, but this back half of that defense might be a little lackluster. So I'm curious to see how that pans out for people who are drafting him, because I've seen them getting drafted a lot recently. So yeah. I'm kind of up in the air right now on the Browns defense. They might be great. They might be terrible. There's no in between though, I think.
All right. Draft grade for Game Blouses. Taylor, I'll go to you first.
I think I would give them a draft grade of probably I almost said D. I meant B. Probably a B-. I would say, just because the bench is a little lackluster for me. If you had a couple of stronger pieces on the bench, it'd probably bump him up to like a B+. But his bench right now, outside of like Mike Williams, I don't like any of his bench players, honestly. It's hard when you don't have a single player on your bench that you feel really confident about. Of course, he probably feels confident about these guys, but me personally, I don't. So that's where I'm going to give him probably a B-. Could have been a little bit better. The reason I'm giving him a higher grade than Sir Lancelot is I can see where he's going to score right off the bat. He's got his top guys who are going to score him points. and are going to be huge impacts on their offenses immediately. So that's why I'm going to give him a B- and a higher grade.
Yeah, I'm going to roll with B- here as well. Devontae Adams and Antonio Gibson are just fantastic too to start your draft with, but I don't see much help from the running back position as a whole. Not really sold on David Montgomery right now, and Melvin Gordon as an RB3 when he's not the starter on his own team. It's kind of tough for me to give a loving grade to. So B- for game glasses. Taylor, before we move on, we do have a question on the show right now. Do I give DeAndre Swift and Mike Williams for, I'm assuming, Justin Jefferson and Tony Pollard? Is half
Swift.
PPR.
It's half PPR. So Swift and Williams for Justin Jefferson and Tony Pollard. I'm torn to say yes because running back is so like I love Swift this year. Obviously Justin Jefferson, I'm a Vikings fan. I love him. He's going to be great. But I think that the value at running back with DeAndre Swift is going to be more, in my opinion, than what you're getting with Justin Jefferson, because you can get other receivers that will still perform well, I think. And I'm not so sure that you can get another running back. Tony Pollard doesn't equal what, DeAndre Swift does by any means. So if you have another running back on your squad who's good and you believe in, then sure, go for it. Get yourself a top-notch receiver. But if you're unsure that you have that plug-and-play guy to replace Swift, because Tony Pollard's not it. So if you're unsure about that, then I would not do that trade just because running back and DeAndre Swift, I love DeAndre Swift this year, and running back especially is going to be very key to how a lot of people are going to win their leagues.
Well, there you have it, Ricardo. The answer from us is no, do not give up DeAndre Swift and Mike Williams for Justin Jefferson and Tony Pollard. All right, thank you for the question. If you have any questions for us on this live show, please drop them in the comments. We'd be happy to help. All right, moving on to team number 4 is Team Kester Holt, one of our OG Listener League members. Team Kester Holt headed up by the following. At running back, Ezekiel Elliott. Yes, quick? I will. My apologies. Got to zoom in. All right. Headed up by Ezekiel Elliott, Clyde Edwards-Helaire at running back, A.J. Brown, Tyler Lockett at receiver, Russell Wilson at quarterback. In the flexes, Darrell Henderson, and then a mix of Jerry Jeudy and or Antonio Brown. And Bills defense, Greg Zuerlein at kicker. But what I'm noticing is also has Irv Smith on his roster and Jonnu Smith. So immediately tight end is pretty weak. And it's just unfortunate that Irv Smith is probably going to be out for the season this year due to injury. So, Taylor, how do you make of this team now that's down to a timeshare tight end?
Well, for me personally, I loved Irv Smith this year. So that's a huge hit for this team because I think that he would have performed really well for him. But outside of that, I love the fact that you got his running backs right off the bat. Now, I may not like Zeke that much this year, but if you believe in him, go for it because you have now Zeke and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You got that out of the way. And then he was still able to get a top-notch receiver in A.J. Brown. That says a lot. I love that. The thing I hate, though, is Darrell Henderson in the 4th. I don't know what that was about. I mean, I get, people saw him getting the bulk of the carries, but I'm sorry, but he was never going to be the man out there.
And then they go out and get Sony Michel. Yeah, so that really shows you how the Rams value Darrell Henderson.
So I think that kind of hurt his team more than helped it, in my opinion. But I love the Tyler Lockett pickup as well. I think that's a nice snag. He's going to be a good number 2 receiver. He always has his boom and bust games throughout the season, but when he hits very big.
Yeah, like 51 points big.
Yeah, exactly. So I like that. The bench is kind of he went young with the bench, which I see that. I think I love the Gabriel Davis pickup in the last round. I think he could have a huge season this year. Nice pickup there. The other ones, I do not like Devin Singletary by any means. I hate all the Bills running backs. And the tight end is, I guess it could be worse. Jonnu Smith could be worse. If they bring out that Patriots offense like we saw when Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski were both there, then Jonnu Smith can probably score some fantasy points still and still be a valuable tight end this season. So I'm curious to see My gut reaction, though, is the Darrell Henderson pick hurt him more than anything.
Yeah, so Brady and we picked back-to-back in every single round. So we were kind of sniping each other. He sniped me with A.J. Brown, so I got him back with Justin Herbert later. And I know he wanted Herbert more than any other player in the draft, and I took him. So that's why I took Herbert in the 6th. So Brady couldn't. But anyways, this team, I love the wide receivers. Might be the strongest wide receiving core we've seen yet.
I like the trio of Brown, Lockett, and Judy. That's going to be a really strong trio because that's 3 possible number ones on their respective teams.
Right, and he could start up to 4 receivers on the roster. So it's going to be interesting to see how he uses his lineup. For me, Brady's going to get a B+. Team Kessler Holt gets a B+ in my book. By default, tight end hurts him a little bit, but also a couple of questionable running back selections makes me give him a B+.
So I am also going to probably go with a B+ here. The only reason that I would have given him an A- just like you, but that Darrell Henderson pick, I hate it. I hate that Darrell Henderson pick that early. I'm sorry, but I get running back is something that you should value high this year, but you could have gotten anyone else, and I would have been happier than Darrell Henderson. He's not good. All right. So other than that, though, I like this team. The receivers are very good. B+ is what I'm going with. It could have been an A-, probably someone that you should look out for this season.
All right. Continuing in our East Coast draft, Team Ferkler is up. Now, Team Ferkler is headed up by two strong running backs, Austin Eckler and Aaron Jones. Wow. First of all, 2 first-round running backs on the roster. Followed up by Robert Woods as his wide receiver 1, DJ Moore at wide receiver 2, Josh Allen at quarterback, Brandon Cooks, Mike Davis, Michael Carter, and DJ Chark all fighting for those 2 flex spots. And then the Rams defense and Jason Sanders at kicker. So, Taylor, my immediate impact from this draft is decent running backs, a strong 2 as start running backs. However, wide receivers, yikes.
You know what? I'm going to say this. I'm going to jump in here real quick and talk about this team because I like this team. All right. And let me tell you why. They've got their 2 running backs. They're studs in Austin Eckler and Aaron Jones. There you go. You're solidified at running back. Don't have to worry about it. But then just, to double down and make sure they're okay. They got a decent third running back with Mike Davis. I like him. He's not phenomenal, but he can be solid for him. Okay. And then they picked up a rookie who has potential in Michael Carter. I like that pickup. And then they also, obviously, I don't really like the James White pickup. That's not a huge one, but it was just a depth guy. So yeah, they've got running back pretty well solidified. And then at wide receiver, now Robert Woods isn't ideal for your number 1 receiver, but like I said, I think he's going to have a decent connection with Matt Stafford out there. But then what I like more than anything are the other receivers. DJ Moore, I've told you how I've come around to him. I think he's going to have a great season this year with Sam Darnold out there. And then you got Brandon Cooks, okay? Brandon Cooks is always going to put up 1,000 yards. He's just consistently that way no matter who's throwing him the ball, okay? He's done it with multiple teams now. And so you got him, and I love DJ Chark. I think DJ Chark is going to be the DJ Chark that we remember that he broke out 2 years ago, and now with Trevor Lawrence, the best quarterback he's ever had. So I love that, and I think that's going to be a strong situation. He's got a great kicker, in my opinion, number 1 kicker, in Jason Sanders. He's got a defense that's probably going to score some points still. The Rams are always good. And then on top of that, he's got one of the top 3 quarterbacks in Josh Allen. So a lot of top tier players at their positions. When you have that many top tier players, you're going to score points. I'm sorry, but I think this is a team you need to watch out for.
I wish I was as scared as you think I might be, but Robert Woods just doesn't give me a high enough ceiling. He gives a good floor, but you don't see those boom weeks from him. You see those very consistent low-end wide receiver 1 weeks, which is fine. He has his place in fantasy. But with DJ Moore, I was big on him last year, and I'm not so much this year. I think he's going to take a step back in production. They signed Robbie Anderson to that big deal, which doesn't mean anything right now. But Terrace Marshall, I think, is going to be a problem on the field. And they cut David Moore on the team. So there's that third mystery receiver we were worrying about. So it's going to be Moore, Robbie Anderson, and Terrace Marshall. And I don't know if Moore is going to be the leading receiver on that team.
You're talking about the guy who has consistently put up 1,100-yard seasons. Now, he might not have the touchdown numbers, but that's also because he's never had a quarterback who can throw touchdowns. Okay.
Well, if Sam Darnold breaks the 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, we'll see.
He also doesn't have Adam Gase with him. Yes.
So, Team Ferkler, there, we're kind of divided. Taylor, give him a draft grade.
I'm going to give him a solid draft grade. I'm going to give him an A-. I think he has some competition for you. Tight end. Now, I don't believe in Tyler Higbee, so it's a little weak, but he also got a decent backup in Gronk. So you know what? You got some options there. And then he's got a lot of top-tier talent on the team. So I'm going to give him an A-.
I'm dropping it down to a B in my book. This could really go one way or the other. And I think we're just leaning on that side of the wall right now. Taylor, you and I on opposite sides there. So the first team we're truly divided on is Team Ferkler, but we're going to keep moving to our reigning champ, Team Statfer. Now, if I told you that I predicted his first 2 picks, would you believe me?
Yeah, I would, because knowing him, he's a Chiefs fan, so yes. Not shocking.
All right, so he was on the board at pick 12, where he won from last season, so maybe some sophomore year magic here for Team Statfer. However, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill to start, all right? Then he follows it up with 3 receivers, CeeDee Lamb, Adam Thielen, Odell Beckham, grabs his couple of running backs in the middle rounds, Javonte Williams, Raheem Mostert, Zach Moss. So sort of a zero RB strategy going for him here, where he loaded up on receivers, got his premier tight end, and his quarterback is Matt Stafford, backed up by Tua. So Taylor, there's a lot of big names on this drafted team. What do you make of it? Is this a championship team?
No. Okay. And let me tell you why. So obviously the first thing that jumps out at me is the fact that the number 1 position in fantasy this year is the running back position. Everyone seems to agree on that. And he just threw it away. Okay. Pretend like it didn't exist. And that's also the biggest discrepancy from the top-notch running backs year in and year out recently to, running back 10 or 11. There's such a gap in points there that to throw that away is not very smart, in my opinion. And then on top of that, I've dealt with this issue before. I had told you about it, Parker. It's something that I do not ever want to deal with. When you have so many receivers on your team that you have to choose week in and week out, who do I start? Okay. Because when you have like 6 or 7 receivers that could start and put up good points, then you have to decide which ones are going to perform well that week. Okay. And while that can be a good problem to have, it can also be a problem, because in a situation where you can only start, let's say 4 and you have like 6 of them, there are 2 draft spots that you could have used to get better running backs. All right. So that's the way I see it. And I think that it's a little disappointing. So obviously he's got number 1 tight end. He's got top great 3 or 4 receivers there with, I like Tyreek Hill, obviously. CeeDee Lamb's going to put up points. Adam Thielen's consistent. I don't like Odell Beckham, but, and I don't know. Michael Thomas, he put a bet on him, but I don't know.
It's at least 5 weeks gone of the season for Michael Thomas.
Yeah. And while Michael Thomas, he could perform really well when he comes back, but there's also a chance that he's just not the same guy anymore. We haven't really seen him be that guy in quite a while. So I want to see him be able to do it again with someone that's not Drew Brees. Right. So I'm concerned. The only running back on his team that I'm immediately like, you know what, that was a good selection, is actually Latavius Murray. Because let me tell you why. I think that Sean Payton, he knows that it's going to be a longer season this year. He's not going to just be able to pound the football with Alvin Kamara, and he's not going to want to either. He's never been that guy. He's never given Alvin Kamara 35 carries in a game. Okay. He's always given him about 20, maybe a little bit more than that, but he's always gave other running backs chances to just, give him a little bit of a break. And especially with the longer season, Latavius Murray is going to get his share. I think he's going to be a pretty good backup running back to have who can easily start and probably will end up starting for this team at some point.
And let's not forget, Latavius Murray used to be a 1,000-yard rusher.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got the resume for sure. So as we said earlier, Team Statper won the league last year. I am not so sure he'll win it this year. His running backs are really going to have to dig deep for him because I just don't see the points being placed by other players on his roster, if that makes sense. So I'm going to give Team Stafford here a B- because you can't count out the fact that he has a great tight end. He has great receivers. Matt Stafford could be a very good quarterback this season. However, when the fantasy world revolves around a running back and you don't draft one for 6 or 7 rounds, that can be kind of tough. But if this is his winning strategy, Taylor, maybe you should catch on.
I don't know if I want to catch on to this strategy. So I will probably give him a grade of a C on it. Okay. Well, C+, probably just because he does have strong receivers, but C+ because I think that he just drafted so many receivers, and like he even drafted a bench receiver in AJ Green, which I like AJ Green, but I don't think that he didn't need him. He could have gone somewhere else. I don't think that was the great move for this team. So I'm going to go with a C+ because I'm not believing in it.
All right. We're halfway through this draft. Actually, no, we're nearly done. We have just a few teams left. There we go. Okay. Moving on to the Fort Huachuca Silent Warriors. Interesting team here. Sniped me a little bit in the draft.
Zoom in so we can see it here.
Yep, let me zoom in right quick. All right, there we go. So, Fort Huachuca Silent Warriors. Let me give you the rundown. Running backs, Jonathan Taylor, Miles Sanders, and then he waited a while to grab Damian Harris and A.J. Dillon. Receivers, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, Juju, Corey Davis, and Nelson Aguilar. Good group of receivers. Quarterback is Aaron Rodgers. Tight end is Logan Thomas. And some studs on the bench he has include the Steelers defense and J.D. McKissick.
Yeah, so my gut reaction is deep. This is a deep team. I like that about this team because they don't rely on their top couple of guys. They have people at each position that can perform well if needed to be relied on their bench. Starting off with J.D. McKissick. He's a great bench running back to have. Someone in PPR standards can still score some good fantasy points. I don't know why we zoomed in on you there, but I also love the pickup of Nelson Aguilar. So you got Nelson Aguilar late. I don't necessarily think he's going to be phenomenal. He's not going to be putting up 1,200-yard seasons or anything, but as a late flyer on a receiver, I think he's a very viable guy to pick up. And then on top of that, obviously their starters are very consistent. He's got Jonathan Taylor. He's got DeAndre Hopkins. Those guys are going to put up their points. They always will. He's probably number one receiver in our rankings, consistent.
Yep.
Or
consensus
rankings. Yeah, consistent. But anyways, I don't like Miles Sanders though. That's the one thing that kind of hurt. But then he picked up Damian Harris, who ended up performing phenomenally well here. We're paying out phenomenally well, I would say, for him because now that Sony Michel's out of the building, it's him. It is him, and it is him and James White. And James White is not the running back that he once was. So it is Damian Harris's job to lose, and I think he's going to get a lot more carries this year. So I like that for this team. So in my opinion, I would give this team, obviously Corey Davis, another receiver that I really like. So I would give this team a solid grade of probably I'm going to give it an A-. I really do. I like this team because of the depth more than anything. I like it. There are some positions that probably could have used a little bit of different, framework, but overall, he's got great players at each position.
Yeah, I agree. There are some, number one overall at their position potential type players here. You look at Aaron Rodgers, if he plays angry like he did last year. You have Jonathan Taylor behind that fantastic offensive line, DeAndre Hopkins performing really well in Arizona last year. So it's a good team. And I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of worried. I really wanted Corey Davis and J.D. McKissick on my team, but just didn't get around to it for where I was in the draft. So this is a good team, and I'm going to go with an A- as well.
All right. Some pretty good draft grades here from me. 3 teams with an A-.
All right, let's move on here. We are going on to Team Cachamilio. And this is another OG of our league, been here since year 1. So her team is very interesting. Nick Chubb and Chris Carson lead the running back room. Stephon Diggs, Deontay Johnson at receiver. TJ Hawkinson at tight end. Tom Brady at quarterback. His flex spots are going to be fought between Tyler Boyd, Gus Edwards, James Conner, and probably Devontae Parker. Colts defense, Chris Boswell at kicker. Steelers fan, if you can't tell by some of the draft picks here, but these starters to me look pretty good.
You know what? I do like the starting core of especially at running back with Nick Chubb and Chris Carson. I love that. They're going to put up a lot of yards. In my personal opinion, Chris Carson this season, I think he has a chance to put up massive numbers. I'm talking 300 plus carries from Chris Carson this year.
Wow.
Because he is that season where he put up 278 carries. I think we could see some numbers like that again from him this year. So I like that running back situation. Behind those two, though, I like James Conner, and Gus Edwards, very consistent. And obviously Gus Edwards now with injury is even more valuable.
Yes.
So probably going to end up putting him in at the flex spot or one of the flex spots. So I love the running backs there. And then if you look at the receivers, that's where I'm wishy-washy, I guess, because obviously I love Stephon Diggs. He's going to be a great player, put up a lot of PPR points, but I don't like the Deontay Johnson pick in round 4. Way too early.
It's a homer pick.
Homer pick, yes, but it's way too early in my opinion. And then on top of that, I don't think that he is a number 2 receiver on a team. I don't. All right. Whereas I do like the pickup of Tyler Boyd. Great pickup. I think that he's going to put up some nice points. Obviously, I think he's prime for a break, or not a breakout because he already kind of broke out, but a monster season for this upcoming season with the Joe Burrow and the addition of Jamar Chase going to just pull more coverage away from Tyler Boyd. I think Tyler Boyd's going to feast this year, so I like that pickup. It does seem a little early though. Round 6, I don't know if that's early. For me, I think that might be a little early. But hey, the rest of the team though, I'm kind of wishy-washy on. The bench is a little. I'm not sold on it. Devontae Parker, good pickup late because he's still a number 1 receiver on his team, and the rest of it though, I'm not totally sold on. So I'm going to give this overall draft grade, if I had to grade it, of probably a B-, maybe a B, because I love the running backs. So I'll probably give it a B because the running backs are most important position in fantasy football this year, and they nailed the running back position.
Yeah, this team has been a listener for a while, so they're taking our advice into heavy consideration. So when you are drafting these 2 running backs in the first 3 rounds, chances are we're going to give you a better draft grade than other teams. But Taylor, my motto of TJ Hawkinson in the 5th is true for this team. Absolutely. Got him there. Yep. So I like this team in general. Like you said, the bench does give me some concerns. It's very veteran heavy too.
Yes.
There's not much youth here on this team, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but that limits the upside. So I'm going to give this team a draft grade of a B. I think it's very in the middle of the road for contention right now.
Yeah, exactly. If a couple of these players go off and really perform well this season, they could easily be in the contention for a championship. But if 1 or 2 guys falter, then I think they're going to be hurting because they don't have a lot on the bench.
All right, moving on to Team Action Jacksons. Now, unfortunately, this team's already been bit by the injury bug. So here are the running backs to start. Derrick Henry, J.K. Dobbins, tough break. However, he managed to grab James Robinson. Don't ask me how that happened, but hey, we'll take it. Running backs, though, yeah, those were the big names at running backs. Terry McLaurin, Cortland Sutton, Jarvis Landry, Jalen Waddle highlight the receiving core. Mark Andrews at tight end. Kyler Murray at quarterback in the 5th round. Good value there. The Ravens defense and Matt Gay at kicker. So, Taylor, what do you make of this team right now after losing one of his top running backs?
So my initial reaction to this team is that they have decent running backs to start with Derrick Henry and then James Robinson to fill in that number 2 role. But behind that, I don't really know what else they're going to do because they literally have like one other running back. So they're going to have to make some moves on the waiver wire to pick up some guys. But then the rest of the team is interesting because I love the Kyler Murray pick in the 5th. Good value, like you said. And then I don't like Mark Andrews, though. I don't like him, especially in the 4th round. I don't think that's a very good value. I love Scary Terry. He's going to be a great number 1 receiver for him. Cortland Sutton, I'm a big believer in Cortland Sutton. I think he's going to come back to form this year. And then behind that, Jarvis Landry is always a consistent PPR guy, but I don't necessarily know that he's going to put up big numbers for him. So I'm just a little concerned, I guess, because where are they going to fill those flex spots? It's up in the air right now. If Jalen Waddle performs really well for Miami, there's a chance that maybe he ends up filling in that one of those flex spots, but I'm kind of up in the air right now. I'm kind of curious to see what Russell Gage does. It could be a good performer down the stretch if he ends up breaking out for the Falcons this year. So I'm kind of curious to see because then it'll kind of fill in one of those flex spots if he breaks out for him. But other than that, I would probably give this draft a grade of, in my opinion, even if J.K. Dobbins was healthy, I still would probably grade it about a C plus probably, just because it really is hurting the fact they don't have a lot of running backs. And J.K. Dobbins in the 2nd was, in my opinion, just not a good value to begin with.
Yeah, this team's, I felt like they reached a little bit for a couple of positions, drafted almost irresponsibly, if that makes sense, just by the way their team is structured. Like when you're grabbing your 2nd receiver in the 6th round, that's a tough thing to come by. However, we've seen Cortland Sutton put up great numbers before, so maybe we'll see something like that again. However, Teddy Bridgewater is a pretty conservative quarterback for the most part, so that'll be something to watch if you're a Cortland Sutton truther this season. But I'm going to give this team a draft grade of about a C plus. Honestly, it's not something that I am going to be anxious to compete against each year, or each week, I should say. But who knows? Derrick Henry is a guy who could put up 40 points a week. So we're going to move on to the last set of teams here. Starting off with team Snakeal O'Neal. Love that pick. Great pick. Or excuse me, love the name, rather. But yeah, you do love his first pick because he had the first pick in our draft. So took Christian McCaffrey like a smart fantasy player. His running backs are followed up with Joe Mixon, Chase Edmonds, and Leonard Fournette. Starting receivers are DK Metcalf and Kenny Golladay. Tight end is Kyle Pitts, the rookie. Lamar Jackson at quarterback. And then the flexes are going to be fought between Marvin Jones, Darnell Mooney, and probably the likes of Edmonds and Fournette. But what's really interesting to me is that he has Trevor Lawrence as a backup in the 11th round. I think that's very early for a backup quarterback, especially when you have a guy like Lamar Jackson. Mm-hmm. But his positions in running back and receiver, I think they're decent. Receiver kind of worries me, though.
Well, I'm going to jump out and say my first reaction is, ouch. I don't like this draft. Christian McCaffrey, good pick.
Can't go wrong.
But then it kind of goes downhill from there. DK Metcalf was a decent pick there, but outside of that, I don't like this team. The running backs are god awful outside of Christian McCaffrey. I'm sorry, but that's just not that great. None of these guys are, workhorse running backs other than McCaffrey. Even Joe Mixon, I don't believe in him necessarily.
He doesn't have an offensive line.
Yeah, it's hard to run the football when you have no one to block for you. So it's going to be tough to see him put up a lot of numbers. And then at receiver, other than DK Metcalf, I mean, Kenny Golladay could be good, but he's got Daniel Jones throwing the football, which is concerning. And then I know you hate that, Parker.
Not DJ.
And then the rest of the team, there's a chance that Marvin Jones plays well. I like Marvin Jones. Darnell Mooney, we don't know what to expect from him necessarily because he he could break out this year in a big way. So there's opportunities on this team, but nothing really solidified, I would say. So for me personally, my gut reaction immediately is probably a C- on this draft. I'm not a huge fan. C-, D+, because it's tough with the situation with the bench being, in my opinion, pretty weak, and the running backs also outside of McCaffrey. I don't know who's going to be the starter there.
I think he might be in for a similar situation you are, where he's got 7 receivers on his roster right now, which is a lot to deal with. And if we saw last year, McCaffrey and Mixon dealt with injuries for a greater part of the season. If that's were a reoccurring theme this year, I think he might be SOL.
Yeah, because he's only got those 2 guys, and if one of them, even just one of them, goes down only for a couple of weeks, he's going to have no one to fill in that role. So it's going to be tough. He's going to needs to be active out there on the waiver wire throughout the season.
All right, I'm going to give him a draft grade of a C- as well. All right, moving on. We have 2 teams left. Looking now at Team Avery, who had the 3rd overall selection, in which he took Alvin Kamara. Very safe pick there. But the rest of his running backs include Myles Gaskin, Kareem Hunt, Tony Pollard. I think that's a pretty good crew so far. Wide receivers.
Not too bad.
Strong receivers, though. Calvin Ridley, Justin Jefferson in the 3rd. My goodness. Who let that happen? Julio Jones, Brandon Ayuk, Laviska Shenault, Mecole Hardman, and Rashad Bateman. So he's got a lot of receivers as well. But hey, those are some fantastic receivers. Maybe he could let go of Mecole Hardman at some point this season. But at quarterback, he has Ryan Tannehill, Packers defense, Justin Tucker. He also took Deshaun Watson, which is an interesting move. So Taylor,
he's taken my standpoint on the Deshaun Watson move.
Until you know something, maybe you draft him. All right, not as a starter, obviously. But Taylor, what do you make of this? This team is a very unique makeup.
I like this team, actually. I really do. So I like the running backs with Alvin Kamara. He's going to be a beast, obviously, assuming he doesn't get hurt. I think Myles Gaskin will perform pretty well for him. And I love Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt is such a value this season. What most people don't realize is he was a top 10 to 15 running back last year overall. And that's standard or PPR. It doesn't matter. He was a top 10 or 15 running back, and he's not valued like that, which is mind-boggling to me because nothing's really changed for him other than the fact that now that everyone knows that he's a valuable, or should know he's a valuable fantasy player, but they still let him fall to the 7th or later. So I love that selection.
Part of that was my doing too, because I considered taking him where I think it took T. Higgins. So I let him fall. Maybe it'll come back to bite me. I don't know. That pick really pained me because I was a couple picks away from grabbing Kareem Hunt with the steal in the 7th, but great value.
And then for the running or the wide receivers, very strong. Like you said, they've got a lot of young receivers who will perform well. He even took a chance on Julio. Now, if you're going to draft Julio, this is the way you do it. You draft him, but you don't draft him to where if he gets hurt, it ruins your team. You draft him to where you have other guys who can easily slip in and fill that role. And what I like about this team is the fact that I think that he is all the people he needs to fill out those flex positions and nothing extra, in my opinion. So I like that. The tight end situation, looking here, I think he has Evan Ingram is who he has as a starter, if I'm not mistaken, which is a little concerning, obviously. But if you're going to, like I said to Parker, if you're going to leave out a position and kind of leave him till late, it's going to be tight end for me. And I love the pickup of Deshaun Watson in the 15th. Take a flyer on him, but you didn't rely on him because he's still got a great fantasy asset in Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. So in my opinion, this is a great draft. I would give it it might be around, it might be an A grade. I might give it an A grade because he's got value. So he's right up there with you, Parker. He might be your number one competition.
Yeah, Team Avery is going to be a tough bet. What really impresses me is his first 6 rounds First 7, even.
Yeah.
It's just stud after stud after stud plus opportunity. That's what it is. Stud plus the opportunity, especially with guys like Myles Gaskin and Brandon Ayuk, 2 young guys who will probably lead their teams at their respective positions. So I'm going to give Team Avery a grade of an A as well. I think he's going to be a very stiff competitor in this league. All right, let's move on to our final team, Team Baranchik. Interesting draft here. Starting off with Najee Harris. Okay.
Wow.
His running backs to follow: Josh Jacobs, Chuba Hubbard, and Alexander Madison. Quarterback is Patrick Mahomes, which he took in the 2nd. Receivers, young guys: Jamar Chase, Chase Claypool, Will Fuller, and Randall Cobb. Buccaneers defense, which was took in the 6th. Robert Tonyan at tight end, and Harrison Butker at kicker. Lots of unknowns. I think lots of question marks surrounding this team right now.
So
give me your doctor's note here.
My just immediate reaction is, did he just slam the computer a couple of times when he was in the middle of his draft or something?
I can tell you that he didn't, because he was drafting in the same household as I was.
Okay, well, you couldn't at least help them out a little bit.
I told him when he was on the clock,
because this was a little rough. So Najee Harris, super overdraft there. Didn't need to get him that high. Pat Mahomes will be good for him though. And then Jamar Chase in the 3rd. Just okay. And then Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs has a chance to be a good 1,000-yard rusher for him. Good number 2 running back. Not necessarily the top-notch number 2 that I would want, especially not that high in the 4th. Chase Claypool, Steelers homer, not shocking there, but why that early? You could have probably gotten him in the 8th or later. And then the Buccaneers defense in the 6th round. I don't think we saw a single defense go before the 9th or 10th before that. So I don't know what made him want to do that so early, because at the end of the day,
get the top guy.
The defenses, they don't score that much points.
Right.
They score maybe 200 points in a season if it's a crazy defense. So then you got the rest of this team. Robert Tonyan, great tight end. He's set at tight end, so that's cool. And the Dolphins defense also. I like the Dolphins defense, but I don't know. I'm scratching my head. I guess.
This is a very tough thing to do, and unfortunately we're going to end the East Coast on sort of a down note. Let's just forget about this team real quick. I'm going to go with the D.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that as well, and so I move on.
There were some good values.
Yeah.
But overall there were reaches, there were question marks. So this is going to be a team that's going to have a lot of fighting to do.
Yes, and what's interesting is they're going to need to be active on the waiver wire. So if you're listening, be active. And number 2 is, it's interesting we end on this team because they drafted a player who, I'm just going to say, and when we look at my draft, is going to be very high. So I see Randall Cobb went in round 15. Mind you, okay, did you hear that? Did you hear that to all the people on the West Coast? Randall Cobb went in the round number 15. All right. I just figured I'd let that get thrown out there, and then we're going to move on to the next
Taylor,
set.
Real quick, do you have a league winner, and do you have a dark horse league winner for the East Coast?
All right, so I'm going to throw 2 names out there as possible league winners just because it's hard to pinpoint one right now because I like both. Team Avery is my number 1 bet. But you are a close second. The dark horse, scroll back up.
Dark horse scrolling back up.
Would be, I think it's one of the first.
Looking here.
I think it was the one we disagreed on. Ferkster. Is that?
Ferkler. Team Ferkler.
Yes. That one. That is my dark
Austin
horse.
Eckler and Aaron Jones.
Yes. And the DJ Moore. Yes. That is my dark horse.
All right. So I agree with you. Team Avery's got the best shot to win this league. My dark horse is the For Hachuka Silent Warriors.
Really?
With the depth on that team, it's going to be an interesting season for that team. Yes.
I agree. I like that team. That was the team that got an A- draft grade from me. So,
all right, Taylor. So we're going to transition over to the East Coast. So oh my God, yeah. So West Coast. Well, you get that pulled up. I will entertain our audience because that's what I do best. I'm a teacher full time, so I got to entertain somehow. But Taylor, I'm taking you away real quick. Taking away my screen, so it's just my beautiful mugshot. All right. So if you have not, go ahead and give us a 5-star review on our Apple Podcasts. That will help us so much in the future for getting any partnerships or sponsorships with future businesses or just, something local that we really want to partner with and grow our brand as well as their brand. You can follow us on Twitter at FantasyFBallin5, which you see under my name the entire stream here. And from there, you can DM us with any questions that you have, any comments or concerns that you might have about your fantasy team, starts and sits. Hey, who should I grab off the waiver wire this week? We will be there to help. But during the season, you have to make sure you're listening to our podcast because that's where probably about 80% of our content will come from. So, Taylor, I'm going to put you back on. Any words as what else we should be expecting from the podcast or Fantasy Football in 5 in general this season?
I think that overall, make sure to tune in for week 1 for this upcoming week because we're going to be releasing week 1 starts and sits and all that good jazz here with this upcoming week. And then the football season starts very shortly here into September. And then from then on, you'll kind of once you get listening to our podcast, you'll get kind of used to the flow of things and how things work because they're pretty similar from week to week. If you guys are interested in adding something else to the podcast or have any questions, make sure to hit us up. We're on Twitter, our YouTube channel, anywhere that you can find us. Hit us up and we'll go ahead and answer all those or maybe add something to the show if you are interested in that.
Right on, Taylor. So it's time for your West Coast. I did it right this time. Our West Coast draft. I'm going to throw it over to you to sort of lead this as I share the teams here.
All right. Yeah. To start this thing off, I guess I will obviously jump in and do my team first. So let me know what you'll go ahead and be harsh on me, Parker. All right. Let me know what you think.
I will.
All right. So jumping in here, obviously I had pick number 5. So it was a decent spot to have. Not my favorite draft spot to have, but at pick number 5, I grabbed Saquon, same, just like you. And then I had DeAndre Swift in pick number 20.
Oh, just like me as well. Hey, great minds think alike.
Exactly. And then the rest of my running backs to fill out, we have James Conner further down the list in round number 8. I got Ronald Jones round 10, and then Gus Edwards in round number 13.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
You fell butt backwards into a good pick.
And then, no, I was the one who told you about Gus Edwards, just mind you. But moving on to wide receivers, we had Justin Jefferson, Chris Godwin, back-to-back picks. I like that duo. And then we had Cortland Sutton that I picked up in the 6th. And I grabbed Curtis Samuel and Corey Davis. And then my sleeper and Rashad Bateman, I got him in round 14. I'm going to see what he does later in the season. And then I decided to go with a quarterback earlier than I ever do with Kyler Murray in the 5th. I just saw that value and I could not let it slip between my fingers. Okay. So I snagged him in the 5th. And then outside of the quarterback, I went with your guy, another value you love. He's been preaching all season long. TJ Hawkinson in the 7th. TJ Hawkinson in the
5th.
Excuse me. I got him in the 7th because when I saw him there, I just heard you in the back of my head saying, don't you let him slip away. So I grabbed him in the 7th. In my opinion, a top 4 tight end for this upcoming season. And then I grabbed the Steelers defense. Wasn't my favorite pick, but I had to just grab someone, and the Steelers defense was on there, so they have a chance. I grabbed another defense since I wasn't happy with the Steelers defense. I grabbed a defense that I thought could perform well this year with the Cardinals defense, and I got your kicker and Tyler Bass because mine went off the board before mine.
Happy. Yeah, so, Taylor, I'm a big fan of your team right now. We kind of have a similar roster, and I mean, we create all of our rankings ourselves, so I think that's kind of self-explanatory. But my favorite pick for you here, outside of TJ Hawkinson, honestly, when you went ballsy and took Kyler Murray in the 5th, I think that set your team up for some success. Because truthfully, we have Kyler Murray as our quarterback 2 on the season.
Yeah, I think that was a situation where I've never draft quarterbacks that early, especially me. If either of us were to draft quarterbacks early, it was always probably going to be Parker over me. But I just feel like I saw value and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to try something new this year, something that I don't ever do. Because normally I wait till, round 8 or 9 to grab my quarterback and just load up on other positions. But I wanted to try something new, and I think it paid off this year.
Yeah. Well, I think your team is very strong, full of values, and I'm not here to pat your back or anything like that. You're telling me to be harsh, but I can't really find many blemishes with your squad, to be honest. It looks really, really nice. I know you're a big fan of Rashad Bateman. I mean, truthfully, he could have gone anywhere in those last couple rounds. But if you wanted to get your guy, great. You kind of passed up back a quarterback and tight end, which is fine in your mind because I know that you have 2 studs. And this double defense thing is an interesting strategy. So you might be faced with some tough decisions, but overall, your team is very, very solid. And I'm going to give you an A to start.
All right, that's a nice grade to start off with. I'm feeling confident this year, but moving on from my team to Denver Chaos Nation here with the number 1 selection. I was curious to see where this was going to end up going to start the draft off because sometimes, some people don't go running back. They go other routes and decide to go maybe quarterback and with Pat Mahomes. I've seen something like that happen, but this guy did stick with Christian McCaffrey as his number 1 pick with him. And then to round out running backs, his starting, obviously he had the second running back on his team was actually Raheem Mostert in the 7th. Quite a wait to get his second running back, but he decided to get other guys in Keenan Allen as his number 1 receiver with Jerry Jeudy, Michael Gallup, and Henry Ruggs, as well as Paris Campbell later. But
Go Paris Campbell. I'm a huge fan.
He got him in the 15th round, so I'm sure you'd like that pick. But what was interesting about this is he got George Kittle in the 3rd, so he got one of those top tight ends, but then he got 2 quarterbacks in back-to-back picks with Pat Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. That one was where things just had me scratching my head as to what he was doing.
This is not a super flex league.
Right, not a non-super flex league. So up to that point, his draft was making some sense, and then I even threw the Pat Mahomes pick, and then I saw Aaron Rodgers, and I was like, did he misclick? But I don't know. So that one had me scratching my head. The Buccaneers defense in the 9th. So in your league, they went in the 6th round. Here, they went in the 9th. Interesting. They also got Harrison Butker at kicker. So what are your initial reactions here of this team?
Not a lot of depth. Very top-heavy team here. And we've seen teams in our leagues in the past try a elite 2 quarterback strategy, try to trade one away. But that's a very weak strategy, in my opinion, because chances are you're not going to find a trade partner early in the season, and you're going to start getting behind in the win column. Quarterbacks, they get hurt like any other position, but chances are I think these teams are going to try and find something else because those quarterbacks are expensive to trade for.
Yeah, they are.
Be able to give up 1 player for Pat Mahomes.
And that's the number 1 thing that we had a guy try that a couple of years ago. He drafted 3 quarterbacks, and it never panned out. He finished in last, never was able to trade a single one of them away. So it's not a viable strategy to go with. Overall, though, if you had to grade this draft, what are you thinking?
I'm actually going to go with a C+ here. I think his draft started off very well. He got some good depth, but there's not enough. Special teams came way too early, in my opinion. Love the Paris Campbell pick, just me being a truther. But the Amon-Ra St. Brown pick in the last round might be of some value.
Yep.
He was not cut. He looks to be like the second option on that team. So, hey, more power to him. That's a guy who could easily outperform his ADP, but it's a C+ for me.
Yeah, I'm going to probably do a C- for me just because while he does have some good players with McCaffrey, Keenan Allen, a couple of good players here and there, I think that filling out the flex spots for him is going to be very hard. You can't just rely on a few guys to score you points. because at the end of the day, it's going to be really tough for him to fill those flex spots with guys that are going to consistently get you points. A lot of these guys are just kind of fill-in players on a lot of their teams. So it's concerning. He lucked out with the Sony Michel trade to where that ended up panning out a little bit more in his favor. Value. Yeah, so I'm kind of curious to see what that goes with, how that plays out. But I'm going to go C- with this one because I didn't really like the setup with the two quarterbacks. It kind of ruined his draft, in my opinion.
All right, moving on to the next team. Who do we have?
So the next team we have Team Kiana here, and they had the pick number 8. So that was my preferred spot, actually. I wanted to have pick 8 if I was going to have any pick. I was really looking forward to having that one, but I ended up with pick 5. Can't complain. And so they started off this draft with, you got Jonathan Taylor, got a running back right off the bat. And then what's interesting is they waited to get a running back for a little while. So they ended up getting Myles Gaskin in the 6th round, but followed that up immediately with Damian Harris in the 7th. And they also got J.D. Mckissick late, another really good value at running back. I love
that pick.
And then they also got because they waited at running back, they got some strong receivers. DeAndre Hopkins, Allen Robinson, Adam Thielen. Those are 3 number 1 receivers on their teams, probably the number 1 overall receiver on this season. So I'm excited about that. And then to see how that plays out for them. And then they also got Darnell Mooney later, which is interesting to me because, like I said, he has an opportunity to perform well. We don't really know whether he's going to break out, but if he does, it ends up panning out really well for him. And then they got Tyrell Williams in the 16th round, who's currently the number 1 receiver out there in Detroit and will probably be that way for the rest of the year. So that was a good pickup late. I also have T.Y. Hilton in the 12th. That one, I'm not sold on that one. So, yeah. And then quarterback, you got Justin Herbert in the 5th round. I think obviously you love Justin Herbert.
Chef's kiss.
I love Justin Herbert as well. So you know what? And considering the fact that quarterback started going in the 5th round, I think that was a great pickup. I don't know how much longer he would have lasted. So it was a good snag by getting him. And then outside of him, they also got Trevor Lawrence as a backup in the 15th round, which is a good backup to have just in case Herbert goes down. And then we have Robert Tonyan in the 8th round at the tight end position with a guy to back him up in Adam Troutman, who could end up performing well. A lot of people believe in him. I'm not so much, but I do like Robert Tonyan. Great tight end this year, good value. And then getting Jason Sanders, my kicker in round 14, sniped me. Okay, I was very disappointed. I wanted to get Jason Sanders, but I got sniped. So a little sad there. But they also got the Rams defense in round number 10. What do you think of this overall team, Parker?
I like it a lot. Myles Gaskin in the 6th is a value. So stacking up on those receivers in the early rounds is great. My only concern is some depth at receiver after Darnell. Like when you have these elite 4 receivers, great. But if you need to plug one of them in, you're stuck with T.Y. Hilton and Tyrell Williams, which has me kind of, indecisive as to how I would like to approach that. But overall, I think this team is solid at the starters. Maybe a couple waiver moves here to bolster their bench.
Yep.
And we're good to go. I'm giving this team an A-.
Yeah, I think that this was a really good draft overall because if you look at the way that the setup, they have their flex positions all filled out. They don't have to worry about that. And like you said, if they move a couple of waiver wire moves throughout the season, depending on who's getting hot and everything. And then with the trade of Sony Michel, that Damian Harris pick looks even more valuable now than it did when the draft happened, in my opinion. I think that now they've kind of got a good trio at running back. Before they had a good duo. Now they have a good trio at running back because of that Sony Michel trade. So I like this team overall. I would give this team, in my opinion, an A grade. I think that it's probably one of my stiffer competitions in this league, not going to lie. So I'm kind of curious to see how that ends up panning out. They should be active, though, on the waiver wire to make sure they stiffen up that bench a little bit throughout the season. But I'm curious to see how this pans out. I like that team a lot.
Great. Yeah, so we're through 3 teams now. What are we looking at next, Taylor?
So up next, we have Catch These Shanahans, all right, at pick number 4.
Great team name.
Yes, phenomenal team name there. I like that. Pick
I might
number
steal
4.
that for our home league.
It was interesting to see. I wasn't sure what was going to happen with this setup. Okay, so to start off, they went running back with 2 of their first 3 picks, which we like, obviously, here at Fantasy Football in 5. They got Derrick Henry and then Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And then to back that up, they have Leonard Fournette and also, I think, Darrell Williams. And that's really it that they have. So a little weak at running back, just in terms of both the number and necessarily the quality. Okay, so you got the top 2 guys, but outside of that, it's a little weak. So then the wide receivers, they have DK Metcalf in the 2nd and Cooper Kupp in the 4th as they're starting to. Chase Claypool in the 6th, which I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Chase Claypool. I don't like him this year. And then Robbie Anderson, Marquise Brown, Jalen Reagor, Nelson Aguilar. Lots of receivers here. I like the Aguilar pick in round 14. Great value there. But I think that they're going to have a similar situation that I had, where it's going to be a lot of receivers and not enough spots to put them all. So that's where I'm sitting. And they also got Josh Allen in the 5th round. Good value there because it's obviously he's going to be a top 3 quarterback, hopefully this year. And they've got that kind of stowed away. They also got it back up in Matt Ryan in the 13th. Pretty good. Graham Gano as their kicker in the 16th round, which he's a kicker. So
Hey, all kickers are people too, though.
That's right. Kickers are people too here. And we see it here on my t-shirt. And then 49ers defense in round number 12. They didn't reach for a defense, which some teams did throughout this draft. You'll see. But they did not reach, which I think was a good move there. They still got a decent defense. What is your overall thought on this team? They got Noah Fant just like you did in round 9.
I mean, that Noah Fant pick really doesn't mean anything to me right now. Hopefully in a couple of weeks, I'll be like, yeah, that Noah Fant pick in the 10th round was awesome. But I like the top depth they have. Again, I think this is a top-heavy team. I think another running back would have done this team some favors instead of maybe drafting a backup quarterback when we have a stud like Josh Allen. But I can understand the need for a backup quarterback. Let's say your top guy goes down. You don't want to have to scour the waiver wire for a backup quarterback. You maybe want to have that guy who can step in and fill those shoes. But Taylor, I think this is a younger team as well. Got some younger guys on it. And to me, I think this team is very mediocre, going to be fighting for a playoff spot throughout most of the season. And I'm going to give it a B.
Yeah, I'm probably going to sit there about a B- for me. Maybe, probably a B- just because the bench to me is going to be hard for them to be able to fill in for bye weeks for a lot of these guys. Their top guys when, Derrick Henry goes on a bye or Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who are they going to fill in that role, because they really don't have another running back. Like you said, I think if they could have gotten rid of, maybe one of these receivers, in around 10 or 11 or something, and got another running back, that could have done them a lot of justice. But because of that, I'm sitting at a B- here for me, just because I don't know what to expect from this team when the bye weeks hit. I think they're going to lose a lot of points on bye weeks, and they're not going to be able to fill that void very easily.
All right, let's move on. Next team on our list is...
So we got the Joe Exotic here, last pick in the 1st round here. And like you said, last year, that didn't matter. We had our winner from last year with pick number 12. So pick number 12 here, and we have Tyreek Hill off the board, and then Nick Chubb to follow that up. So we got receiver and running back, but fill out the running backs. We have Darrell Henderson in the 3rd round, okay? And then Mike Davis in the 5th. A.J. Dillon in the 9th. And that's it at running back. I am in pain for them, okay? And then that receiver, you got Tyreek Hill, obviously, in the 1st. And then you have CeeDee Lamb in the 4th. Good value there, decent. And then you got DJ Moore in the 6th. I love DJ Moore this year. And then a lot of late receivers, Marvin Jones, Will Fuller, and Mecole Hardman in 3 straight rounds. So interesting pickups there. I like Marvin Jones out of any of those guys. And then to start at tight end, they have Logan Thomas in the 8th. Good value there. And they also backed him up with Anthony Firkser. And they got Matt Prater as the kicker. Love Matt Prater this year. And they got, very important though, they got a guy here, Parker. Round number 15.
A guy.
You see
Here's a guy.
Yes.
Ooh, is that Ryan Fitzpatrick?
That's right. Fitz magic. So automatically this team gets a good grade from me just because they got Fitz. All right. But they also got
I
Matt
drafted
Stafford
Fitz too.
Yeah, well, so they also got Matt Stafford in the 7th to start for him, which is interesting to me because a little high. Yeah. I think that they could have gotten maybe waited another round or something or two to get Matt Stafford. But if you get your guy, you get your guy. So the way I see it, though, if I had to draft or give this team a grade, a draft grade, I would probably sit around just because the running back is so weak outside of Nick Chubb. I'm going to probably give this draft a grade of a C+, just because I love the receivers that they have to start off, but the running back, it's so important this year. And, even if Darrell Henderson was healthy, that it was not a good pick in the 3rd round. They reached a lot for that pick. So I'm sorry. I don't like that. But other than that, I would probably give this team a C+. I like the receivers. The bench is hit or miss. A couple of guys who kind of could be injury prone. Will Fuller, obviously, always misses half the year. And then the Patriots defense will perform pretty well for him. What are your thoughts, Parker?
I'm actually going to be a little bit more harsh. C. That's my draft pick for this team. Just because, I don't like DJ Moore as much as I do this year. Although in the 6th, that's a pretty good value. He's usually going a little bit higher in his ADP, but the Darrell Henderson pick really bothers me, especially when you have other guys available at that spot. So it's going to be tough sledding for Joe Exotic. Hopefully he doesn't find himself locked up again this year. But we'll see. Joe Exotic may be just a surprising team. But C for me right now.
All right, moving on. We have the team of old men here, and they had pick number 10. So
as they grab Najee Harris.
yeah, team of old men with rookies. So, but no, it's interesting to see what they did here because they did listen to us with getting running backs early because they started off the draft with Austin Eckler and Najee Harris, good duo at the running back spot.
Start.
And then they have more good running backs with Kareem Hunt in the 6th. And then, that's where the good running backs fall off with Zach Moss later, and then Nyheim Hines to round out the running back core. But that doesn't really matter because they went out and got Darren Waller in the 3rd round. Good value there, just because if you're going to get your top 3, you got to get them early, And so interesting value there. And then they didn't get another tight end. So when you have a top 3 guy, though, you don't really need to get a backup tight end. But receivers, they get drafted many of them. Okay. Since they waited till round 4 to get one, they got Robert Woods as the number 1, and then Julio Jones to follow that up, Deebo Samuel, Antonio Brown, Elijah Moore, Jacoby Myers, and Marquez Callaway. So I'm curious what you think of this team. They got Tom Brady in the 7th, which is where they get the name team of old men. And then they also get Daniel Carlson as their kicker with the Broncos defense in round 13.
Well, to be honest, I think a smart move for this team would be to ship a receiver for a running back. Maybe 2 receivers for a quality running back even might really help this team out. Because after those first 2 guys, and Kareem Hunt, that last running back spot's really questionable. How are you going to address your bye weeks type of thing? But I don't think it's going to be as much of a problem for this team as it was for Joe Exotic's team. I think they're in a little bit of a better shape. Tom Brady in the 7th is a good value. I personally like him in the 8th, maybe a little later than the 7th. But outside of this, I'm not sold on receiver. Julio Jones isn't really touchdown dependent. Robert Woods certainly isn't touchdown dependent. And I worry that this team's going to struggle to find the end zone.
Interesting.
So I'm going to give them a grade of a B-. I like the talent, but you're playing the floor, not the ceiling.
I think the way I'm going to view this team, I'm going to give them a B because they got their running backs out of the way and they got a 3rd one. So that's really where it's key. They got a 3rd good running back who could be a top 10 running back in Kareem Hunt. I love Kareem Hunt. I can't say that enough. And then at receiver, they still didn't necessarily lose out on a ton per se. They still got some decent ones. Julio, Robert Woods, Deebo Samuel could perform well this year. You like Antonio Brown. I think Jacoby Myers could.
Brown.
could perform well. A lot of people are big on Marquez Callaway. Kind of wait to see there. They got Elijah Moore too, so they've got possibility at receiver. So I don't know. I like them as a B because they don't have those top. They don't have those huge necessarily numbers from guys. They aren't going to get those 40, 50 point games from any of these guys necessarily. So they're going to have to kind of be consistent, and that's where they're probably going to win most of their weeks is just consistency.
Right on. All right. Good looking teams so far in the West Coast. I believe we're halfway through, Taylor.
Yeah, halfway through. We got 6 more to go. Starting this thing off with red marks. All right. And they had the number 2 pick in this draft, and I'm excited to see how this pans out for them. So we have Dalvin Cook, good pick at number 2, and then the rest of the running backs are as following. They have David Montgomery in the 3rd. Tough one here with Travis Etienne in the 5th. Who is now gone, obviously. And then you have Jamal Williams in the 10th and Alexander Madison in the 13th. So decent set of running backs there. Even if Etienne didn't get hurt, it would have been a pretty good set of running backs. And then you also have at receiver, Terry McLaurin in the 2nd. A little bit of this is what was interesting. Scary Terry went before Justin Jefferson and AJ Brown. That was interesting to me. So Scary Terry here, as you can tell, this is a football team fan as well. So getting him in the 2nd, a little bit of an overpay there. And then you also have T. Higgins in the 4th, DJ Chark in the 6th, Jarvis Landry in the 8th. And to fill out the receivers, they have Terrace Marshall in the 14th. Good value there. And then Sammy Watkins in the 16th. And then you also have at tight end, we ended up getting Irv Smith, a team that waited at tight end till round number 12.
It's a tough break too.
Tough break there. Yes, exactly. Irv Smith down with an injury. So, and that was the only tight end that they grabbed, which is disappointing because I think that would have been a great late round snag for them and could have performed really well down the stretch this year, but if he didn't get hurt. And then they also got Evan McPherson, a rookie kicker. Rookie kicker worked well for you last year, Parker. And betting on rookie kicker again
Tyler Bass
here with Cincinnati's rookie Evan McPherson in the 15th. And they also got early defense in the 9th with Washington football team. So also obviously Ryan Tannehill picked round 7 as their quarterback and Justin Fields in round 11 as a backup. Thoughts, Parker? Let me hear it.
Well, I think there were some reaches in this draft. Scary Terry before those 2 receivers, Brown and Jefferson, is a tough stretch. I can understand the love somebody might have for Scary Terry. He's a fantastic receiver, but to me, you got to place him behind those 2 other studs. Washington defense early, I can understand. I took them, I believe, in the 10th or the 11th, which is early for me, but I want to make sure that I got them this year. But overall, I like this team, really. I think the Justin Fields pick maybe could have waited, I should say, for a different backup quarterback later, because I think if you throw a good running back or receiver in that mix, you're going to really set yourself up well this season. So you got to find another tight end, unfortunately. You got to find a replacement back for ETN. So he's got some waiver work to do. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's where he just, flat out drops a guy like Justin Fields because you need that extra position. So tough breaks for this guy. Pre-injuries, I'll give him a B. Post-injuries, it's a B- for me.
So the way I see this draft is pre-injuries, I like a lot of these guys. T. Higgins, DJ Chark, love those receivers. Irv Smith, I thought was a steal that late. Terrace Marshall as well. So he had some good values, but he did overpay on a couple of guys. Scary Terry, a couple of these other people I think that he could have gotten later. So the way I see it, I would give this pre-injuries a draft grade of, like you said, probably about a B, I would say. Post-injuries, I think it really hurts him when it comes to the injuries because Irv Smith, I think, would have a great season for him. I'm going to knock it down to a C+ because of the injuries, because if he doesn't find a good running back on the waiver wire, which is going to be tough because running back's so slim this year, and at tight end also. Tight end is going to be a mystery now for him because you don't know what you're going to get from here on out. So I'm going to give it a C+. And I'm kind of curious. So I see we have a comment here, Parker.
Yeah. So Matthew Duncan in our league, he's team old man, says he likes this assessment. There's consistency over huge numbers is what I was going for. Besides Najee, Eckler, and Waller, I think I could have some 30-plus point games. So, yeah, these guys are types of guys where, especially in full PPR, you get them in the end zone and you get them 125, 150 total yards. You'd be looking at a very solid week. And combined, if two of these players combined don't score 30 points a week, I'd be very surprised. So I think those top three, Matt, are a really good stack of players. And I'm glad you liked our assessment. We try to be as fair as we can with these. We're going into this like we don't know you. So.
Yeah, exactly. So I like the comment here, because at the end of the day, you got to look at it from a perspective where you don't, fantasy football it changes from year to year, and your team's going to be a lot of luck, as you saw with this last team with the injury bug. So I'm kind of curious how the rest of the season pans out for him, Matt. Good luck. But moving on to the next squad, we have thickest quads here. All right. So they had the pick number 11. So just before the end of the first round, and they had an interesting start here. Went with our strategy with running back, Aaron Jones, and then Antonio Gibson. Good set of running backs there. And then we have a huge wait for another running back, though, all the way to round number 9 with Melvin Gordon in the 9th, and then David Johnson in the 11th, and Latavius Murray in the 15th. So a lot of depth running backs later. And then at wide receiver, you got Mike Evans and Tyler Lockett is your next two in rounds 3 and 4. And then you have Brandon Ayuk and Kenny Golladay, as well as Michael Thomas. They took a bet on him in round number 8. And they also got Michael Pittman Jr. and Devontae Parker in round 14. Snagged him. I was going to actually snipe me a little bit with Devontae Parker. I was going to get him late, but kind of glad I didn't in the long run. And then they also got Lamar Jackson at the quarterback position in round number 5. And I think that they have no other quarterback on their roster, just Lamar Jackson. Went the route that I did. They also got Dallas Goddard in round 10 as their only tight end. They got the Vikings defense in round 16, and then Young Hoku in round 13. So they ended up going, 3 more rounds up to get a kicker over defense. I like the strategy because kickers are people too.
That's Amen. Right. Amen. Well, this is an interesting team, Taylor. What are you going to grade them?
So the way I see this team, I think that the overall grade, I think they did a good job with their running backs early. The depth, though, is a little concerning. I like Latavius Murray that late. Good pickup. Devontae Parker. They had some nice picks late that I liked, and some good picks early, but that in-between range was a little concerning for me. So I'm going to give them a draft grade of probably a B for right now. If Michael Thomas hits really well towards the end of the season, it could end up as a higher grade, obviously. And then for me, it's just those middle rounds from round 8 through 12 is really concerning to me. So I'm not a huge fan of any of those guys. Parker, what are you thinking?
Well, I'll tell you what, thickest quads might have had one of the hottest starts to this West Coast draft, given the value and the talent he picked up in rounds 1 through 6. But Taylor, you're right. A guy like Michael Thomas, we know what he's capable of, but we don't know how long he'll truly be out for. Because last year, he's like, yeah, I'll miss 8 weeks, and then he ends up missing like 12. And it's just very tough to determine his injury status week to week. Dallas Goddard gives me some issues too, because they didn't trade Zach Ertz, and I thought they would. If they do trade Zach Ertz during the season, though, Goddard's value is gonna, stay afloat and probably outperform his ADP. So I think that's a decent pick, banking on the fact that they might trade Zach Ertz. But we don't know. We don't know yet. We don't know how Jalen Hurts is going to play. Overall, I would actually like to give this team a B+. I think they have some really good players. The only person I don't like is David Johnson. Truthfully, I'll just flat out say I don't like David Johnson. But I think there's good talent on this team. So B for B+ for thickest quads.
Yeah. The more I look at it, I do like the receivers. I might it's between a B and a B plus for me. It's kind of up in the air right now.
B and 3/4.
Yes, B and 3/4 for me. So, but moving on to the next squad, and this is where the draft just got interesting. All right, Arizona Sparky Reborn. All right, so we have him at number 3, pick number 3, and he started off the draft very hot, very very good selections. He went with our strategy with running back. Grabbed Alvin Kamara and Chris Carson. The rest of his running backs are Kenyon Drake, and also he has James White later, and Malcolm Brown in the last round. So okay set of running backs. And then at receiver, this is where I
he was stuck in 2010 drafting his fantasy team.
Yeah, and what's ironic is I thought it was a situation where they added him to the queue and accidentally forgot and it just drafted them. But Randall Cobb in the 3rd round, and it was not a mistake. He did it on purpose, I found out. So what is interesting to me is we're going to rewind to the very last team that we looked at in the East Coast draft. And in what round did Randall Cobb get drafted there?
The 15th round.
The 15th round, that's right. There's a 12-round discrepancy here. And that's all I got to say. That's all I'm going to say. All right. So Randall Cobb, and then we have Brandon Cooks, Laviska Shenault, Cole Beasley, and Jamison Crowder. So some guys who easily could put up some nice points for them throughout the season, as long as, Randall Cobb, I don't know.
He's going to be the best target Aaron Rodgers has ever had.
I guess so. And then we have Joe Burrow in the 7th, which is a decent quarterback situation. Early, I agree. But quarterbacks were going pretty quick there in the 5th and 6th round. So maybe you just got scared. And then you got Kirk Cousins in the 12th as a backup. And at tight end, you got Tyler Higbee in the 8th round. And then you also got Evan Ingram in the 11th. So some competition at tight end there, which I kind of like because I don't like either of those guys a lot. But if you don't like a guy, get someone to give him a little bit of competition from week to week. So I do like that. And then you got Matt Gay in the 15th round. And the defense with the Ravens in the 9th. So what are you thinking of this team overall, Parker?
Well, let me just say, boldest draft strategy ever.
Yes.
And even if Randall Cobb wasn't a serious pick, this team is very interesting, to say the least. I don't know how to value this yet because receivers are very, very weak. When you grab a guy like Randall Cobb instead of a guy like, Mike Evans in the 3rd or Chris Godwin, it's tough sledding, to be told the truth. So I don't think this team is getting up seeing the playoffs. If they do, it'll be a God touching his team and being like, hey, you're making the playoffs this year.
Yeah. So, you never know. Here at Fantasy Football in 5, we do not say that we know everything. So maybe this guy has the inside information. Maybe he called up Randall Cobb and was like, yo, are you going to play? Are you going to put up fantasy points for my team? And he's like, yes, I am. And so then he was like, all right, I'm getting him in the 3rd. Okay. So he might know something we don't.
Worried he might be gone in the 4th. But
yes.
But in all seriousness, this team gets a C- from me.
Yeah, I'm going to give this team it really hurt that Randall Cobb pick. If he would have even gotten him in like the 10th round, it would have done this team a lot of justice because they have some good pieces. Kenyon Drake, Brandon Cooks, Laviska Shenault, all could perform very well for him. And it hurt them getting him so early. So I would give this team a C-. Probably, yeah, I'd say C- just because he did try and get some good picks later to boost up his team. So I'll go C-. If that one pick would have changed, it could have changed everything for this team. But moving on, I think this is the final set of teams here. So we have the pick number 9 with Team Rykoff. I believe that's how you say it.
Yep.
And so pick number 9, they went out and got a receiver off the board with Devontae Adams in the 1st round. And the rest of the receivers are as followed. They have Juju in the 8th, and they also got Odell in the 10th, and then AJ Green in the 13th, and Quintez Cephas, the Detroit receiver, in the 16th round. Maybe they know something we don't. All right. And then looking at running backs, they got a lot of them early. So we got Joe Mixon in the 2nd, a tough break here with J.K. Dobbins in the 3rd. And then Josh Jacobs in the 4th, though. So he should be okay at running back, even though he got Dobbins in the 3rd. And then the rest of his running backs, he got Michael Carter in the 9th, who has an opportunity to perform really well down the stretch this year if he ends up being the lead back. And he got Salvon Ahmed in the 15th round. I like him this year as someone who you could easily pick up on waivers and perform well for you. And then at quarterback, he's got Dak Prescott in the 6th round, as well as Tua in the 14th. And then defenses, he got the Bills defense in the 11th. Tight end, he got Kyle Pitts and Mark Andrews, which was interesting. But I am assuming he's planning on starting one of them in his flex spot. So Mark Andrews in the 5th, Kyle Pitts in the 7th. And then I believe that rounds out the team with Justin Tucker in the 12th. So what are your initial reactions here, Parker? Because I'm kind of curious.
Well, it's a tough break for this team. I'm not too sold on the running back talent now. However, the receivers for where they were taken, good value. Taylor, I have to show you a comment real quick.
All right.
It's making me crack up.
All right. So, oh, God.
Thank you, fat boy Marion.
Okay. Yes. I would say the running back situation is a little dire, I would say. But, I like all the running backs outside of J.K. Dobbins, obviously. Before he got hurt, I didn't like him either. But I like them all for opportunity. The question is, will they get,
I think Michael Carter might be just buried on the depth chart right now. It's going to be tough to see how to just handle that rookie who doesn't really have a lot of the same, athleticism metrics that other running backs in the league do. But going back to my wide receiver point, getting Juju in the 8th and Odell in the 10th, it's kind of insane to me. Like, I think that's pretty good value.
Yeah, I thought that was great value. I actually thought about getting one of those guys, just not because I needed them, just because it was great value. Like, I almost took Odell in the 10th because I was in the 10th or 9th.
Why not?
I was like, you know what? He could put up 1,000 yards. Not saying he will, but there's a chance. Mm-hmm. And then I got to thinking to myself, I was like, I don't need him. And so I decided to go elsewhere. But good values at some of these spots. I am curious about the double tight ends here. He must believe that he can start one of them and the flex, and they'll consistently put up points.
Yeah, this is an interesting strategy, something we haven't seen in our league yet. But hey, if you believe in the tight end position, great. Why not take it away from the power away from the other teams?
Exactly. So I would probably give this draft a grade of, I would give it a grade of a B-, just because it's lacking some depth at some of these positions, especially now that Dobbins got hurt. It's lacking some depth, and due to that, although they were good values, which is what kind of brings the draft up for me a little bit. So I would give it a draft grade of probably a B-. Could have been a little higher if they got a little bit better draft pieces or depth pieces later.
Yeah, B- for me too. We have 2 teams left now.
So we got fresh face Kelsey with pick number 7 in the West Coast. He had obviously Travis Kelsey with that first selection. And then he had no other tight end on his team, which he doesn't need to have one after getting him. And then at the running back spot, though, he's got Miles Sanders as the number 1 running back in the 3rd. And then he goes around and doesn't get a running back until the 6th with James Robinson. Paid off pretty nice for him, though. And Trey Sermon in the 8th. And he also got Devin Singletary in the 12th and Gio Bernard in the 14th. So an interesting set of running backs. At wide receiver, he's got Stephon Diggs in the 2nd. And then he got Jamar Chase, Deontay Johnson in back-to-back picks. And then he went out and got Devonta Smith in the 7th and Mike Williams, as well as Rondale Moore. Lots of receivers here for this team. And then he went with like the no quarterback play and didn't get a quarterback until round number 10 and got back-to-back quarterbacks with Trey Lance and Jalen Hurts. So young guys who have running ability is what he went with at the quarterback position. And then he got kicker Jason Myers and the Browns defense in the last round. Like I said, I don't know what to think of the Browns defense. It could pay out pretty well for this guy considering got him in the last round. What are your thoughts on this team overall?
Well, the back-to-back young quarterback strategy, again, a strategy we haven't seen on a team yet so far. tonight, and I like it. Truthfully, Jalen Hurts is going to be more serviceable at the beginning of the season because we don't know what Trey Lance is going to be able to, well, if he's going to even start. If Kyle Shanahan was smart, he would start Trey Lance right away. But once Trey Lance is unleashed, I think Lance is going to be the clear-cut starter for this guy's team.
Yep.
Outside of this, though, Miles Sanders is a tough break in the third. No, I like Miles Sanders. However, I just don't see the same numbers for him this season. I think he's going to regress a little bit. Maybe he'll come back to life next season. However, the whole running back situation for this team, I'm not a huge fan of. Just James Robinson saved face for this guy, but honestly, it could be a lot worse, and it's not. So, what are we going to grade it for? I'm going to stick with my B- from last time. Didn't get that, top even 2 or 3 tiered quarterback. Jalen Hurts is like around quarterback 15 for us or something like that. So not an elite quarterback. Probably could have gotten one earlier, but I like the guy's team. It's a B- for me. Might see him in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably go with a B-, maybe a C+, just because running back is so weak for him. I think it's going to be tough with James Robinson. I don't believe in Miles Sanders, never really have. And then what's interesting to me is the fact that, like you said, he waited on quarterback, but yet he didn't get a whole lot of extra talent, in my opinion. Normally when you wait on quarterback, you get, a lot of extra talent at these other spots. And I feel like he just wasn't able to do that. So it almost made waiting on a quarterback not worth it for him because he didn't get that top-notch talent at receiver or running back to fill in that void. So in my opinion, I say I'm going to give it a C+ just because I don't like the situation here with the lack of the middle rounds here are a little concerning. So they have some potential though with Rondale Moore. Brown's defense could be really good for them. I'm kind of curious to see. They got a lot of receivers on this team. I think you got 6 or something like that, and a lot of young receivers, which is interesting to me. A lot of young teams in general this season.
Yep. All right. Moving on, we have one final team to discuss.
Yes, we got Team Rogers here, who had middle of the first round, pick number 6. And I had an interesting draft with that pick because that's where a lot of people like to be. They like to be right in the middle of the draft, so they don't have to wait very long. So they got Zeke right off the bat with pick number 6. They followed up the Zeke with a couple of other running backs and Chase Edmonds in the 5th, and then Javonte Williams in the 6th. They also have Phillip Lindsay in the 10th, in my opinion, the best value pick on this team. And then they also got Tony Pollard in the 12th. They snagged Calvin Ridley for the first receiver and A.J. Brown, good duo at receiver, and Amari Cooper, for 3 straight receivers. And they also got Tyler Boyd, who's going to be a steal for them, Jalen Waddle, and Russell Gage. Lots of receivers on this team. And then they got Russell Wilson as their quarterback. Didn't get a backup quarterback because they didn't need one, obviously. They got Mike Gesicki as their starting tight end in the 11th round, and Jonnu Smith, since he went the double tight end route, since he didn't necessarily like Mike Gesicki as the clear-cut number 1. I like that move. And then Brandon McManus in the 16th as their kicker, and Colts defense in the 15th round here. So I'm curious, Parker, what is your initial reaction of this team?
Going through this list, it really shown to me that the running backs were a strength for him. I'm not huge on Zeke, and I'm not really huge on drafting your team's backup. So when you have Zeke and Tony Pollard, it kind of creates for, I don't know, almost like a conflict of interest,
Yep.
But outside of that, strong at receiver. And I love the value of Javonte Williams there in the 6th. Javonte Williams might be my favorite rookie running back behind Najee Harris this season. And obviously, we really like Phillip Lindsay. Tight end, little weak. However, any one of these guys could outperform their ADP. If it's my choice, it's going to be Mike Gesicki. He really wasn't horrible with Tua last year, but he was much better with Fitzmagic in. So maybe year 2 with Tua, we'll see an improvement for Gesicki's game. But I think this team is primed to make a playoff run. I really do think that. And I like them a lot. I'm going to give them an A- here.
Wow. All right. I think the highest grade since the first couple of teams. I don't like the team as much as you do. I do think they got some good values with Philip Lindsay, Tyler Boyd. Russell Gage could perform very well for him if he breaks out this year. So overall, I would give this team a decent grade, but the second running back for me is just they don't have a great second running back, and that's what's killing this team. If they had a decent number 2 running back that they can rely on week in and week out, then I would feel okay with giving them a good draft grade like an A or an A minus, but they don't. So I'm going to stick them with probably a B or a B plus. I'm leaning towards B plus because they got some good steals here in the late rounds. So I'm going B plus with this team just because they don't have that second running back. If they had that number 1 running back on whatever team it is, then they don't really have that. They got Zeke and a couple of random dudes.
I think Williams will be able to service his team well. I really do. Yep.
I don't know.
I was this close to drafting him when I passed up on Kareem Hunt, and then I passed up on Williams. Didn't get either of them on my team, unfortunately. But just the way
I guess the way I see it is I view Williams as more of a third running back than a number 2 running back on a team. I would not want him as my number 2.
Oh, right. And that's why I grabbed Swift as my number 2. However, when you have 2 flexes, it's like running back 2.5, honestly. And I would have been fine with Williams to have been that for me.
Oops, sorry about that. We got a severe weather alert. So anyways, overall, though, I like this team. I think that they're going to have like you said, a good playoff run and be in the contention for this season. So I guess to round this out in the West Coast, what team is going to win the West Coast and what team is a dark horse for you?
All right. Well, you know what? I hate saying this because I hate giving you this sort of confidence, but you've got a very good team, honestly. And I think there are going to be some competitors like Team Kiana's got a good team. That last team, like I said. But can you showcase again, team Catch These Shanahans?
All right, Catch These Shanahans right here on the left.
Yeah, I think team Catch These Shanahans might give some teams a run for their money if they improve the running back position in the waiver wire world. We saw last year the current owner of Team Redskin Mark pick up James Robinson.
Yes.
Or do we have James Robinson this year? We don't know. But there's always somebody like that on the waiver wires that the teams find out. And if their guy needs a team, or if the team needs a running back more than anybody, it's Catch These Shanahans to improve his championship odds. I think it could be a dangerous team with some elite players. They just have to click on the same week. So that's my dark horse is Catch These Shanahans.
All right, I like that. I think for me personally, in the West Coast, outside of my own team, obviously, you're going to like your own team. Outside of my own team, I really like both Team Kiana and I, believe it or not, I kind of like, where was it? Thickest Squads. Was that it? I think, yes. Thickest.
I don't know what you're thinking.
Thickest Squads. Yes. That was the other team that I liked a lot. Because they got such strong recievers. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good pick too. We'll have to monitor.
So that's a dark horse. That's a dark horse. If the way I see it is Thickest Squads, if they can improve their backup like running backs, I think that they'll be okay. Because like I said, the only rounds like 8 through 12 were the only rounds I didn't like from them. Outside of that, the rest of the picks I thought were pretty good. So if they could improve some of those bench players on the waiver wire, just like that, they have an easy chance at having a deep playoff run this season. So that would be my dark horse. And obviously I like Team Kiana as the winner for this one. So those are my top teams. I'm curious though, Parker, overall, who do you think is going to win the overall league because obviously at the end of this, we're going to have East Coast versus West Coast champions playing out each other. So what team do you think, will it be the two of us in the championship? Will neither of us make the championship? What are your thoughts?
I would like to bet that neither of us would make it before both of us make it. But
I agree.
But Team Avery from my division, I think has a very, very strong chance.
I like that
team. Together a great team. He was, singing our praises on Twitter, thanking us for a good draft grade. And I think he knows that he has a good team too, which, when you have confidence in your lineup, that makes Sundays so much easier for you.
Yes. The way I see it, so last season in the Listener League, I didn't really like my team at the end of the draft. I liked a couple players, but it made the season hard for me because of that. This year, I feel so good about my team that I feel like I don't have to make any moves, which says a lot. When you feel like you don't have to make moves, that's when you feel like you have the opportunity to make moves, though, if that makes sense. Yep. So that's where you can create a really good team and a deep playoff run and how you win leagues, in my opinion. So I think that rounds out this show, though, Parker. I'm going to throw it over to you to close this thing out. This is me, Taylor, signing off.
All right, Taylor, once again, we thank you for joining this Fantasy Football in 5 dual podcast and live stream on our YouTube channel. If you have not been following us on our YouTube channel, you can go subscribe to us. It's just Fantasy Football in 5. It'll come up. We just did a season preview. That video is up on our channel. So if you want to go watch that to figure out what's going to be expected from Fantasy Football in 5 this season, you got to go check that video out now. But if you're in the podcast world with us, obviously you can find our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, which is clicking the ticker below my screen here. Make sure you go leave us a 5-star review to help us, get some traction in the podcast world, because we really enjoy what we're doing and we hope to provide more content for you. So, Taylor, thank you for reminding me. Shirts, if you are interested in a Fantasy Football in 5 t-shirt or a Kickers Are People 2 shirt, you can head over to our redbubble.com. The link to that is in our pinned tweet on our Twitter profile. Our Twitter handle is at FantasyFballin5. That's the number 5 there at the end of the handle. So you can find us pretty much anywhere you'd like. But for now, next time you're going to see us, it's going to be our Week 1 show. So stay tuned. The season is just around the corner, and we hope to see you next time. This was Fantasy Football in 5, and we thank you for listening.